Don't Starve is a game about survival, and also the top priority during long layovers in the Andes. It's a chance to roleplay as myself, because, like my character, I have little to no skill. And today, I'm starting a personal quest to make it 100 days in the virtual wilderness, desperately hunting for virtual food, and desperately drinking my virtual piss. Now, aside from some daytime-only peaceful runs with a buddy, attempting to play normally solo turned out like my first foray into Elden Ring. I got picked apart like a shellfish in a mukbang video. But recently, I decided to give Elden Ring another chance, and realized if I use my shield instead of rolling around like a droideka on crack, I could actually survive for longer than 30 seconds, instantly making me go from soft to rock hard. And so it got me wondering if perhaps Don't Starve is just another Elden Ring. Or maybe if I don't immediately punch a killer beehive and die, I could not do that and live. In this video, I will be ignoring the wiki completely, and unlike in real life, I plan to learn from my mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, that brings me to character selection. To start this challenge off, I decided to go with Willow. Willow comes equipped with a lighter and a stuffed bear. Could these tools be game-changing utilities which sway the very binding of fate in my favor? Or does this spark-slinging pocket pal do little more than satisfy my itch of committing digital acts of arson? Only time would tell. Day 1 starts off like any classic adventure, being shat out of a portal and immediately seeking hot cows in my area. But not just to bury my face into, nay, despite my interest in romance, I seek the power that comes with the herd. Beefalo are chunky meat sacks which decorate the plains area. What they lack in decorum, they make up for in irritability, particularly a vast hatred of being bonked, whether by spear or by enemies who target myself. Within 30 seconds I've made my first kill, an enemy so vile that its mere presence in the area would no doubt cause the very fauna to wither and die, and the beefalo to violently evacuate their bowels. I'm talking, of course, about this butterfly. Not so fabulous now, are you, nature? With the area safe, I switch my focus to gathering the essentials. Berries, sticks, grass, and flint decorate the landscape haphazardly, like the forest just initiated the Heimlich maneuver on someone with a pica disorder, giving my MacGyver-inspired woodland dweller ideas on how to craft tools, weapons, and fire. So armed with only the word beefalo and the misplaced confidence of someone who thinks moss is edible, I ventured out of my comfort zone, which is and always will be wherever the fuck I am at any given moment. Now for the keen-eyed viewer, or just, I guess, an eyed viewer, you can probably see that in the bottom left I have a run counter. Now you could of course look at this and think nothing of it, maintaining a positive attitude while relishing in the whimsy of blind faith. Like pretending the chaotic chorus of grunting from the handicap stall at midnight is just a wheelchair-bound man and his aide, or that the needle you saw being injected behind the bus stop was a disheveled man topping up on insulin. And for that, I thank you. But no, I died a shit ton. That sound was people clapping cheeks, and why have Fentasum when you can have fentanyl? One addition to the game I know I'll prioritize and had heard about earlier is the ever-enduring crockpot. A black hole for all my discovered ingredients, so I won't shovel raw frog legs into my gullet like a Victorian orphan sneaking bites in between chimney sweeps. On the top right of the screen you can see 3 tiny circles. The failure trifecta. Hunger, health, sanity. The first 2 are your standard survival fare, but sanity? That's a Don't Starve specialty. Here in the forest, without TikTok or social media, the brain-rot equilibrium we've counted on to keep us sane will start to dwindle. With no thirst traps, political bot vomit, or anti-intellectualism, the cold, sober reality of the forest takes its toll. Food and health can shoot up and down in a heartbeat, like the stock market after a late-night presidential tweet. But sanity? Easy to lose, pain in the ass to gain. When it bottoms out, you go bottoms up and start getting plowed by shadow monsters. So in preparation for this, I did what every seasoned survivalist does in the face of abstract terror. I picked some flowers. A full bouquet of these bad boys is basically Zoloft in petal form. They give us +5 to sanity with the added bonus of being absolutely beautiful. As day gave way to night, I wasn't worried yet. Fisting a torch, I continued through the darkness and collected various essentials. And when daytime arrived, I decided to jump headfirst into a spiky ground fleshlight, which transported me to a random area of the map, in the hopes it'd splooge me out near some beefalo. It didn't, but it did put me next to some tumbleweed. I chased a few of them down before taking a break to threaten the local wildlife. After taking a few steps, I spotted some angry-looking hounds who looked like they probably wanted to threaten the local me, so I decided not to trifle with them. Another night passed, no closer to my goal, but I was filling my inventory with the essentials, so not a complete waste. And when the sun came out, I finally struck gold. Like literal gold. And that's when I witnessed some Discovery Channel level curb stomping. A large bird was strategically teabagging some iguanas. After it killed one, I decided I'd try provoking a few of them. And after scaring them into a straight line into the oversized angry bird, it made quick work of them, and in turn gave me a chunk of meat to salvage from the battlefield. I then decided if it was this easy to piss off, I might as well set up camp for a bit and let it take care of anything that came to attack me. So I built a campfire with my new feathered bodyguard. And by dusk of day 3, I had created my first science machine, adding yet another thing to the world that has better ideas than I do. Prototype number 1 would be an inventory maximizing backpack. With grass for the fabric, sticks for bundles, and sheer delusion to account for the leather, I now had an additional set of dirty little slots for the cacophony of assorted shit this realm was teeming with. And so, as nighttime reared its fugly noggin, I hit my first milestone in tool-type diversification. The combined effort of my science machine and singular brain cell have yielded the brilliant idea of sticking a sharp rock to the end of an impressive stick, giving me access to the basic spear. I cooked my leafy meat into leafy steaks and remained firmly planted to my little slice of fiery light. As the end of night 4 came to a close, I decided that it was in my best interest to move. I can pretend that I'm satisfied sleeping next to Chernobyl Big Bird, but the truth was that I longed for the comfort of the bovine variety. I continued following a path, leading me to dead ends, though at one point I was greeted warmly by a delegation of enthusiastic bees. And by the time dusk rolled around, I was still wandering aimlessly until I spotted a very suspicious movement on the ground. It looked incredibly similar to the monsters from Tremors, and for a moment I contemplated which character I would most likely be in the Tremor universe. And I quickly decided I'd rather not wait around and find out what happened, regardless of the canonical result of the film itself. Now, should I have met this encounter with fear? Or perhaps I should have been a bit more practical, thought rationally. But why be rational? Just like quicksand. Sure, it may not be likely to make an appearance at the local park, but I'm not taking that chance. I've avoided it my entire life. But sure, go ahead, live your life dangerously. Ride a motorcycle without a helmet. Build your sand castles. I'll be safe and sound while you drown on some I told you so. On the morning of day 6, I spent some time mining some marble. I didn't see any kitchen renovations in my immediate future, but I wasn't about to take that chance. Although, seeing as how I was able to create a backpack from sticks and grass, the recipe for marble countertops might actually turn out to just be flowers and birdseed. On my way past more bird squatch territory, I noticed an egg in its nest. Having seen their violent tendencies, I decided to take it into Child Protective Services. This disgruntled its mother, but I was prepared for at least some levels of gruntle, and I made my escape. I had tried to hatch one of these eggs on a playthrough years ago, but never succeeded. But I thought I'd give forced adoption another go. At dusk, I built up another base, unsure of how long I'd stay at this particular spot. But if you haven't figured out that lacking any sort of tangible plan is baked into my DNA, then I don't know what video you've been watching. It was also at this base where I decided to finally build my crockpot. And after looking at build options, I decided a chest would be paramount for dumping my assortment of junk into, as the state of my inventory was deplorable. Another night passed by, and in the morning I discovered a new survival circle appeared underneath the usual 3. Like the female audience watching The Witcher, my moisture meter was rising. I had no idea what would happen if it continued to rise, but I wasn't immediately dying, so I didn't put much thought into it after that. I built a trap in order to secure myself some valuable protein and discovered that the amphibious residents of the forest were no more intelligent than I was, so they were easy prey. It was now that I found myself with the perfect set of ingredients for a plate of meatballs, 4 frog legs, and a fistful of berries. Which I fully believe is what happens when you add these ingredients to an Instapot, so by all means try this recipe at home and impress your friends. It was at this moment when the sun went down my character would speak unprompted. A foreshadowing of things much worse to come, but I chalked it up to just being the zany personality of my chosen survivalist. And the background noises just being the typical melodies of this mysterious world. But as the sun came out and the sounds, which I can only describe as someone trying to start up a leather chainsaw, continued, I went to face my problems head on, which was difficult seeing as the sounds were coming from everywhere. This would be no issue though, as shortly after I started walking, the beast would find me instead. This is a hound. Something I've never encountered before because, like I said, before I only played this game, the settings were so outrageously stacked in my favor that I was honestly more worried about kneeling over and dying at my desk rather than meeting my death in a playthrough. Now, I had been feeling quite confident as I marched in to face my fears. But then it started running. And somewhere between the realization I had nothing equipped and was carrying a literal teddy bear with me, I thought maybe it was a bad idea. Now, at the time, I couldn't say why I was suddenly the target of a rampaging hound, as I didn't look this stuff up until much later. But whether or not it was the cause, I would advise traveling through any predator-filled forest with a pocket full of meatballs like I did. But as terrifying as the snarling hellhound was, it seemed to feel quite a bit of sympathy for me and decided to go back to wherever it came from. And I triumphantly, although kind of pathetically, slunk back home. On my way back from the encounter, I made sure to warn the bees of the unwanted intruder, to which they promptly thanked me by aiming their ass at me and following me for a bit. Then I stopped at the science machine to see what other wisdom it had for me. I made a hoe prototype. And no, that doesn't mean I was crafting a sex doll for Elon Musk, however beneficial for society it would be for him to switch to fucking things that don't result in more kids with names that Google would suggest makes a strong password. Nay, it was a garden hoe. Foraging had yielded me mild success, and if I was going to keep a supply of filler for my culinary concoctions, I thought maybe I'd try my luck with agriculture. Its description: till soil for seeds. What I was standing on? Well, I guess not soil, because I just slapped the air when I attempted to use it. Though upon further snooping in the tab, I found an item which said it would plow the soil. Clearly a prerequisite before my hoe would be needed. And with my new garden digamajig, I finally added something to my run it had been missing. A cohesive plot. And with the plots put down, I put seeds in the ground, conveniently forgetting at this point that I made a hoe at all, and made myself a watering can. And for the first time, it really felt like I had a goal in mind. My ADHD-riddled mind had already begun to forget about my hunt for beefalo, turning my run into a blurst Stardew Valley-esque experience. With the ground thoroughly moist, it was then that I remembered something in my inventory: the egg. And after placing it on the ground to see what happens, it switched into its hatching phase after some time next to the fire. Was this a wise move, or a strategic blunder? Well, considering I took a game which gets harder as time goes on, and arbitrarily set the goal at 100 before making it to 10, I'd say wise moves are in short supply. When the sun rose, my egg began to sweat vigorously, and after a quick moment of internal panic, I remembered my watering can and doused the flames. A reaction that would save the egg, and be a maneuver that would have unforeseen uses in my future endeavors. Already my garden would yield something, what appeared to be 2 flowers. I tossed them into the crock pot with some frog legs and unsurprisingly ended up with meatballs, which was of course my original plan, though I was unaware of just how universal the ingredients for them would be. This revelation would lead me to just try throwing whatever the pot would let me into it, though frog legs and 2 sticks would unfortunately lead to my first culinary shortcoming. I had somehow crafted the same substance that lurks in all of our shower drains, a pile of wet goop. So obviously I did what any self-respecting cleaner does in the bathroom and promptly shoved the substance into my mouth. I did wash it down with meatballs, and as the night came, I began to feel more confident, like there was a fire in my soul, a burning sense of pride, a gurgling of true resolve. It was probably the result of the wet goop inducing a fever, but I'd like to think it was only because I had reached 10 days. 10% of my goal. I just had to do this another 10 times, and I'd be golden. I spent the morning watering and speaking to my plants. I like to imagine this isn't a game mechanic and more so the rapid degradation of my character's sanity in both being alone in the woods and realizing someone like me is in control. And as day 12 rolled around, I found myself needing to pick flowers for sanity, as I had spent some time near a haunted gravesite, and as I stood there remarking to myself at how adorable the ghost was, it was busy slurping my sanity like a pug with a pup cup. As I made my way back to camp, I was greeted by a welcome sight. My vegetables were standing proudly, gigantic, bulbous, and majestic. Just a few words I'd use to describe this variety of plants I grew from a single type of seed, but seeing as we live in the land of universal meatballs, this was no particular revelation. Harvest time was upon me, and as I made my way up to a carrot, of course in this world, it could only result in mildly fucking me over. It spawned a circle of thorns around me like a barbed wire hula hoop to remind me of just how stupid I was for thinking I could just eat it. I don't even think I realized that the gigantic carrot I picked turned into 1 carrot in my inventory. I'd spent the last few days watering and speaking to a single carrot. And not just a single carrot, a violent single carrot. But don't let that deceive you into thinking I was done doing something stupid for the 12th, because as night fell, I chucked another stick into the crock pot and made steamed sticks. But just as I was getting down and depressed, it finally happened on day 13. My baby was born. Unsure of what to feed it, I went to pick some corn, already completely forgetting about the success of my previous such ventures, and again found myself double-fisting thick thorns. But after freeing myself and promptly doing it again, I gave the tiny bird boy some seeds, which after realizing the horrors of what those seeds eventually turned into was a much better use for them than replanting. And I'll be honest, at this point, I'd been pouring all of my energy into this farm plot, thinking it would be way more successful. And now, with it seeming like a complete waste of time, my plan had gone from farming alone to farming with a bird, to no plan with a bird. At the very least, I gave him a name, Dennis. And if I wanted to give my Dennis the chance he deserved, I'd need to come up with a new goal. One that wouldn't end up with him growing up disadvantaged and hanging around with the wrong crowd. So I smashed my camp and turned the page on a whole new chapter for this unlikely family. Of course, upon turning that page, I found it to be torn up and covered in dicks, because as soon as I brought us to a nice new neighborhood, 30 seconds after setting up the camp, I was treated to the familiar sound of leather chainsaws, signaling the return of the hounds. They either employed excellent tactical planning and timed their assault right as my potential pig bodyguards passed out, or it was my brand of plan, which is completely generated on luck. Either way, 4 of them showed up to chase me. And as I made my escape, I suddenly heard the panicked cries of my son and turned around back just in time to see them eat Dennis. And at that point, I saw red. With my spear, I killed the first hound responsible, and then I actually saw red because they started gnawing on me and quickly killing me. I could take solace in the fact that I died with Dennis, albeit outside of the dog's mouth instead of in them. But I took this as a learning experience. And so I died, but decided to look up a single fact and found out that the hounds will be a constant attacking force I'd have to look out for in the future. And I took a moment to reflect, to think about why I died, and realized maybe I shouldn't ignore resources on my way by them, or use sticks as both kindling and crockpot ingredients, or spending all my time farming mystery crops, or continue to farm said crops after getting thorns in my ass, or birth a child into the world which I have no means to provide for when even myself can't be provided for, like an unwanted pregnancy I actively encouraged. But this was indeed a first run. And I didn't name this video Surviving 100 Days and Don't Starve because I was ready to give up after 14. I was going to try again. I was going to get stronger, play smarter, and be ready for the hounds on my next run. And so I would be back. I will be back with another attempt in this goofy, unforgiving sandbox for round 2. Catch me next time like the hounds caught Dennis, and I will see you then.